One of my favorite parts about 2026 and this podcast is that I'm going to be interviewing more people about their experience with Pinterest or Pinterest adjacent type of topics. And one of the interviews I have been most excited to release to you is with my friend Meagan Williamson. We are talking today on the Simple Pin podcast all about the future in 2026, what AI will bring, how you can get curious, and what part of you will rise to the surface when we have all these competing narratives about what AI will take over, how it's changed Pinterest, and how we can lean into growing our business despite a really tumultuous time. I hope that you take away some really good thoughts and ideas from this interview. It's right around 40-ish minutes long, so great for a drive, when you're making dinner, when you're going on a walk, or working out at the gym. I think what Meagan and I have to talk about as it relates to being leaders in this industry, leaders as people who teach Pinterest marketing, is that we want you to embrace not just the platform, but who you are on the platform. So with that, let's dive into today's episode. Meagan Williamson, welcome to the Simple Pin podcast.
Thank you, Kate. So excited to be here.
I know, me too. And we already know we can talk for hours, and because we have. But I am going to flip my normal script, which is I start with asking, like, who are you and what you do? But I'm going to say, what keeps you still invested in Pinterest marketing? Because you have been in the industry for a long time. And why do you keep showing up day after day to talk about Pinterest?
Such a good question. Well, I think over time, my answer to that has evolved. When I think about why I still do what I do, and of course, we're always tempted, right? Like Pinterest is connected to the entire content ecosystem. We could flip or move very smoothly into other domains very easily. But the reality is that I always come back to Pinterest, and I had some deep thoughts about this in the last year because it has always served me personally. So whether you are a caretaker, have chronic conditions or medical conditions, you have children, whether you want to travel half of the year, I've been always one of these people that I'm a fair weather friend when it comes to most marketing channels. And even in my early days as a blogger and content creator, I relied on Pinterest, and I really felt firsthand the power of a marketing channel that could help me grow when I wasn't necessarily actively online. And the interesting part about this, like part of my story, is that in the early days, I was like single, carefree. I had a dog, I had my car, I was road tripping, I was blogging. And now it's easier for me because like I'm a business owner, I have small children, I want to be present in my family's lives. So I'm busy now. But even when I wasn't busy, I found that I just couldn't get consistent in how I showed up in other channels. And Pinterest was that platform that always helped me grow. So as we've seen sort of things change and evolve, and, Pinterest is hot. Pinterest is, some people are a little bit upset with the changes. And you and I have observed every time the boat has rocked, I just come back to that thread that we need a form of marketing that supports us when we're not actively on. So it's really easy for me to preach and teach and share the magic of Pinterest because I felt it and I continue to feel the benefits of a platform like Pinterest in my own world.
So with that, what do you say to people who come to you and they are tempted by, I guess we'll call them the dopamine hit channels?
Yeah.
When they come to you and they're like, this feels so boring. I feel overwhelmed by it, or I don't know if what I'm doing is actually working. What for you is that thing that you bring to the table that says, here's why you should stay in the game?
Yeah. I think as things have evolved and we've seen things come and go, and some are short form video, written, short form written, all the different formats and the way that social media has evolved. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what I really think about when it comes to Pinterest is this idea of a search first platform that has been designed as a search-based platform from day one. So we see a lot of platforms, a lot of even AI. We've seen, Instagram and TikTok and all these other platforms. And it's never for me, like, I just want to be clear, like a this versus that. I always see things as complementary as part of your content ecosystem. But what I've seen for Pinterest and why Pinterest, I think, has always sort of risen to the occasion, no matter the trend, is an idea that you are inserting yourself in the customer journey because of how it's been designed. I have to say, I'm not a natural salesperson. And so for me, a lot of the other platforms feel really disruptive. It feels very like, oh, here's the hook and look at me and, ooh, what's your thumbnail? And I'm not dismissing those things. Those things are important. We know that. But to have a platform in your marketing toolbox that inserts you in a very natural, helpful way to provide a solution to the thing that they're actively searching for, that allows you to really step back from your marketing and really understand your audience at a deeper level. And you and I know this, that your success on Pinterest is rooted in really understanding your audience and understanding the content that meets their needs and their search behavior. And honestly, when business owners tap into that, it's like something shifts. It's this like sustainability. It's this resiliency. Good content is good content. It doesn't matter if you're taking it to a meta platform, to YouTube, you want to rank better on Google. Your unique story, perspective, and value and solutions is going to help somebody, and Pinterest will surface you at the exact right moment of the person who is actively looking for you. And for me, that's the magic special little piece of the puzzle that Pinterest has always offered and continues to offer people.
Well, I think that's a perfect tee up to 2026 and things changing. And search is changing, right? We see search on every platform being fueled by these AI changes, the user habits. I heard recently on a podcast, search went from 4 words to 23 words. We're now searching in these ways of phrases. And with that, we see every platform, including Pinterest, really trying to navigate the waters of AI and what is on their platform. And you and I have talked together and on our own platforms about the AI slop. So we don't want to address that too much, but we do want to say elephant in the room. We realize it's there, right? And it will be everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're in this weird inflection point where, because it is there, I think to your point about human created, curated content, that is even more important. So let's start at this point of how do you think, or how, I guess, would you instruct people going into these next couple of years to really create content that is distinguishable from AI, that it is, and I'm going to add another layer to it. So I'm going to pull your little sales string a little bit.
Yeah.
How do you sell them into kind of the keep showing up to create it when you feel these creators kind of feeling a little bit defeated to say like, oh, I don't know if I can compete with this animal that's out there. I guess let's talk about that a little bit.
So when it comes to content creation, I think what we are seeing is like what you're describing in the words in my head was sort of like a heavy energy. Like a lot of people are thinking like, what am I going to do? Do I want to use it? We're having these ethical questions as business owners, as content creators of the role of AI, the pros and the cons. And I think when I personally think about it, I think a lot about sort of human-led AI. AI has made its way down to the regular people, right? We're so deep in marketing that like what we hear are silos that we operate in, the gossip we hear, or even our perceptions. Like you and I hear a lot of like, oh, I'm so sick of the AI on Pinterest. And even when they brought out the first platform to really bring out the end user's ability to control how much AI they see and AI, capabilities of sort of filtering your results, people still are, very loud about it. And you and I see that because we're in that echo chamber. But regular people are using AI in interesting ways. And I do think we have to evolve with our audiences. And I, as a business owner, I had these conversations very early on with those in my trusted circles, from, my father-in-law who worked for IBM for 40 years, to my husband, who's a full stack developer, to my friends who are in marketing. And I knew that I wasn't so sure about how it was going to evolve and how quickly it was going to evolve. But I wanted, and I do feel that we need to sort of get out in front. I know that's sort of like a cliche thing to say, but to understand it. Because to understand it, and you don't have to understand everything, you can allow to say, okay, this is a powerful tool. How are we going to use it? There's like many things, good and bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about content creation, especially business owners and creators who are like feeling kind of down about it, I think that the one thing we have to remember is that regular people are now starting to recognize, like the raccoons on the trampoline, that was fake. I've been like, any animal video.
No, I don't either.
Even my children, like they're young and they're like, really, did that happen? Did that jaguar fight that lion? And I'm like, no, that is not real. Our spidey senses are going off. And I think that during this time, people who are looking to grow on social media, to use Pinterest to market their businesses, this is the time when you need to rise up and be yourself, add that human element. We were doing a training about video creation, and that UGC video creator and educator was talking about the importance of adding your unique perspective and voice to your marketing. I heard someone call it the trust recession.
Yeah.
We really are like, is this company legit? Is this store real? How many fake stores have we seen that are promoted by a Meta ad?
Yes.
When we go to a creator account, we're like, if it's like sensationalist videos, you think, wait a sec. And so regular people are experiencing that. So this is like a time that if you are a creator, to really bring your unique, imperfections and let people know. Like I always think that when somebody finds a typo in any of my copy, which is pretty much every day, I have a gift of a lot of ideas, but I'm not a gifted
Yes.
editor. I always say, aren't you happy to know that I'm not like this was written by me? That we really need to see the human side of being a business. And that's why founder stories are so big right now. That's why we want to see the imperfections and see who you are, how you uniquely move through the world. So as it relates to content creation, I think that we can't stop what's happening, Kate, right? That's something that you and I talked about, is that we can't stop what's happening, but we can interpret it through, I think, as leaders in marketing. This is a phrase that I thought of that made me feel better. It's sort of like through the expert lens, or through the idea that we have the ability to scrutinize good from bad. And I think there are wonderful uses of AI. It has helped people who have accessibility issues, people who require, like when I used to work in school psychology, I was at a hospital and there was a psychologist who was very gifted but awful at writing reports. And he would use voice to text to help dictate reports that were literally incredibly impactful in the lives of the families that he worked with. And that was a form of early AI, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how much we interact with AI already, that in ways that makes the world more accessible or to help find shortcuts. But there is this other side, right? This other side of things that feel very fake. And we, where our trust is being questioned. Is this a real business? Is this a real content creator?
Right.
Not sure if I'm really answering your question.
No, you did. I think where we jump off from there is then human-led, trust-building content, and then matched with the uses of AI. So how can we embrace changes? And I'll share this little story to kind of tee this up, where my daughter, who's 18, we were having a conversation. I had just listened to this amazing podcast series, The Last Invention. It's the whole history of AI and to where we are at today. It's excellent and well done. I highly encourage everyone to listen. He gives these 3 categories at the end. There are the accelerationists, there are the scouts, and there are the doomers. And these are the 3 people in these categories of AI. The accelerationists, of course, are saying, go at all costs. There will be some cost, but we want to get to the end or be the winner as quickly as possible, right? And then you have the scouts that are going, okay, I can see the good and I can see the bad, but I want us to use caution, right? I want us to actually weigh the benefits with the costs and how will this impact society as a whole. Take the good, leave the bad. And then there's the doomers who say, this is a terrible idea. Never lean into it. It will destroy humanity. It will, in fact, be the last invention that we do, and it will be our biggest mistake. And so don't do it. She was saying, I'm a doomer. I don't want anything to do with it. yeah, I don't want to use it. I feel like it steals from artists. Very interesting perspective. And my husband and I are more in the scout, like take the good with the bad. So looking at that and helping people as they lean into content creation, as they lean into their marketing in these next couple of years that I believe will change so much. How do we help people see the good uses of AI? I guess the scouts of Pinterest marketing AI, right?
I was gonna say, I think you and I are scouts. It's sort of also this expert-led interpretation. So we see how it could be very useful, but we're also aware of some of the negative implications. I think with anything that's new, it can be really scary. And you don't know what you don't know. Like I find it's very interesting to me because sometimes when people show me, well, this is what ChatGPT told me, and I'm not calling out that particular AI platform, it's just one that I use more often.
Yeah.
Any of the platforms. You could say any tool, even like a tool that you have a subscription to that has an AI component, might suggest a particular thing to do with your marketing or even just life, right? And if you don't know what is a good answer or what we would call output, then you don't have the ability to scrutinize what it's telling you. And that's when it becomes dangerous. People are taking what is given to us as fact, and that this is, I'm going to do air quotes here, researched or validated. Actually, in fact, I volunteer in dog rescue, and a foster parent was like, they were dealing with a veterinarian. The veterinarian's team was wonderful and competent, and they were getting some blood work and waiting for the results to come to a conclusion. And a well-intentioned foster said, well, I typed all the symptoms into ChatGPT or into AI, and it says it's this. And right away, the founder of the rescue, who has a background in veterinary medicine, said, please be very careful. That is misinformation. We know it cannot be those things because we know the bigger picture and we know how to interpret these results. And it was like a very out of my marketing world example that if you don't really understand what's being given to you, you don't have the ability to scrutinize if that is a good answer, is that good, quote unquote, strategy? And so what I really worry about is during this time of rapid evolution, good and bad, adaptations, it's integrated into everything, is that some people are taking those trust falls. And so people like you and I, who, the good old fashioned,
Yes.
and the ins and the outs, is that right away you have an eye for okay, this is how we can use it. This is what we should be careful with and proceed with caution. I think the way that I view the world is that we need to interpret everything we're given that could be an asset or helpful through a sort of critical lens and just think is this actually useful to me? And I think we know there's some research. And again, I actually went digging around for it because it's in neuropsychology. And I used to be in neuropsychology, and the headlines were all kind of sensationalist, part of your brain dies when you use AI. Well, I think that's, it's one of these things that if you actually read the research, they were just saying that during what is called an fMRI, which is a functional MRI, they can see that certain parts of your brain when you engage in certain types of thinking. So if you outsource your thinking and your cognitive critical thinking skills to a robot or to AI, then your brain is less active in that area, which of course, right? It's not like your brain has atrophy. It's just that you're not using a part of it that you would have used before. So that's where, everything needs to be sort of interpreted through that lens. And I think that's why scouts are so important because people are using it, Kate, whether
They are. Yeah.
it or not. I would rather, I decided to firmly move myself into the camp that to be blind was not going to serve or help folks. And instead, how can we use this with caution, with ethical parameters, up around it? Because denying it wasn't going to change that everyone has begun to use it.
Yes, 100%. So let's talk about those creative uses that you see, the good, if you will, of leveraging AI for your Pinterest marketing. let's start with images. That's like the number one thing that people go to. Do you see a creative use for folding in an AI tool to create images for you, especially if you are image deficient? Because we know some people who come to us, they are not good at taking pictures. They don't have they don't want to use stock photography, but they want something that feels uniquely theirs. What have been your use cases that you've seen that are good, healthy use of AI?
Yeah, well, actually, so I support or have a lot of artists in my world, and so they would use a lot of mock-ups, and their
Mm.
mock-ups are now being flagged as AI, which is like sort of interesting because they're actually buying those images to use as like room mock-ups. We have surface pattern designers, illustrators, designers who are taking their unique patterns, adding them to a mock-up, and those images are now being flagged as AI. I think that's an example of where you're like, well,
Mm.
that's not really AI. And then we've all heard the horror stories, right, of like grilled cheese sandwiches that have like, layers and layers of gummy cheese that there's no way that there's like, I'm not a food person, but there's like, the velocity of the cheese is not possible.
Yes, or there's a hand with like
Yeah.
weird finger placement holding it. Yes.
I think I knew one that someone told me about in the very early days was they were looking to design a laundry room in a small space and found this like gorgeous AI created images. They didn't realize it was AI until they saw
Yeah.
that none of the pipes led anywhere. Like the pipes were just like poking in its toes.
Yes.
So I've heard some really interesting uses where people have, like you said, been imaged, like don't have a robust content library and have designed thoughtful AI images of mock-ups or even room designs or like interesting thing that's more information based, but it's done through their lens. So they're making sure all the loops are closed, some interior design images. I guess what I a little bit worry about is it all feels a little bit too perfect. I don't know if
Yeah.
you searched
Yes.
hairstyles,
Oh, they're awful.
and I'm just like, but I could never have that hair because that is an AI image of a haircut. So my hair's never
Yeah.
going to be like that. So I do worry that there's some, especially in the beauty, fashion, or even like if you look at home decor, that a room would never be that beautiful. But then you could say, well, it's like a room in a magazine that's
Mm.
gorgeous and luxurious. Like, would we ever achieve that at home?
Mm.
I think that again, it's through that same thing when it's human led. So if somebody is creating something with love and care and thoughtfulness, and it's of their own idea and imagination, but then there's this crossover that AI is trained by sources of information. Can we know with full certainty, especially from a legal perspective,
Yeah.
that it's not gathering data or information from a source that would be considered illegal or unethical? Like, was it gathered with permission?
Mm.
And that's where we get really, like, I understand where artists, anyone who's creative, right? That's
Yeah.
all very upset. I think that too, like the way that I see things is that there's always going to be copycats. There's always going
Yeah.
to be somebody who's taking, whether it's an artistic idea, a thought, it doesn't matter. We could put it onto any niche, but they can't be you. They will never have your original idea and your unique lived experience and perspective on the world. And like that magic can't be
Mhm.
followed up. A robot could study the way you speak. A robot can look at the designs you make. And that, I do feel awful for artists who have seen their books or their art style brought into AI. I also think on the positive, a lot of people who have not necessarily mobility issues, but need to access the world in alternative means have had their worlds open up with the help of AI. And I think that's really incredible. Like there's a lot of good happening as well, right? Or
Yeah.
saving people money. I've seen people use it to come up with meal plans that are budgeted in a very specific way. And these are individuals who wouldn't necessarily have the means or ability to hire someone to help them do that. That deserves a mention as well. I think, we're having this conversation right now. I bet in 3 months we could have another one and another one. So even if anyone's listening, know that this is something like the nature of science. It's just going to continue to evolve.
Yeah.
The really important thing is we can't control change, but we can control how we react to change. And that's what I think a lot about, right?
Yeah. Well, in that, I'm thinking, is there room for creators, e-commerce, business owners, artists to help educate their audience as to how they can try to discern or even putting on their images human created content or artist created content. Where do you see that being a role in the next year or so as a distinguisher? Because to your point about like the AI modified labels that are on Pinterest, I appreciate the label and I love it, but it's definitely far from a perfect system just yet, and all categories are included. So it's this thing of, okay, if somebody did AI generate a piece of or an image, how do we get to the fact that maybe the AI content on the other side? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't necessarily have a problem with an image being created using AI. I think that could be really helpful for people. What I do have a problem with is the stolen artwork or books or whatever is on the other side of that pin. So do you think there's a place for business owners to somewhat like educate their audience or not? Maybe that's left to other people.
Yeah, well, I think, it's much like how we operate in other worlds. I think you educate yourself before you use something. I think you need to understand what you're using. And that's like each as a business owner, right? We have to take ownership the same way that if we hired a bookkeeper and they submitted our taxes, like, it's us that if nothing's been done wrong, it's our name. So the same way that if you're creating images, I'm going to say something controversial. It was running through my head. I don't know if I should say it, but I'm going to
Go for it.
So I think you and I and other people in our worlds care a lot more than regular people do.
Agreed.
I think regular people, they don't really mind. And what we're seeing on Pinterest is when people are very vocal about using Pinterest and maybe being a little bit disappointed with some of the experience of recent with the AI and ad saturation, is that they are annoyed because they've been online for a long time. They remember maybe the glory days,
good old days,
and all social media was less noisy and less disruptive, and we didn't see as many ads in general. But it's sort of like, I think that regular people and some industries are more plagued than others, right? I think it doesn't change that when you find something, you're excited you found a tutorial or a cool picture, and then you find out that you don't actually get to this long format source. I think that is one thing that the system will get better and better at, is like sort of connecting those dots. Like we want to be expected some more, and we find out that it was like, there's no real depth to the information, or there's going to be a system for that. I do believe that Pinterest is really leading in trying to say, okay, this is where we're going. Their own algorithm and technology is based on machine learning. So how do we harness this while, advocating for both sides? I think that it's one of those things that I think regular people don't care as much as we do. I think we're proceeding with caution at this point. And there's going to be it's going to continue to evolve. So I almost feel like anything I could say will be outdated in like.
It's true. Yeah. And actually, I think what you said just hit the nail on the head with, it's kind of like that idea of counterfeit money versus real money. You start to understand what real money looks like because you do see counterfeit over and over. And for someone who is coming to a website and I'm reading through like the top 5 jeans to buy for winter. And I'm like, this person I'm not hearing anything about their experience, nothing about their fit. And that's what I want. I want you to tell me this had a lot of stretch in it, or it fit me weird in the hips, or I'm a pear. And, like those are the assessments that I'm drawn to. So I actually agree with you. I think this will naturally work itself out. And it's not on the creator or the seller's shoulders to educate their audience. It's more, let's just see how it plays out. And it's a tiny bit cross your fingers to say, I hope the counterfeit doesn't rise to the surface more than the authentic.
100%. And I've seen, and you know what? I think that's going to continue to evolve. I've seen some accounts where they're creating some AI images that are from their own ideas, taking their own original ideas and maybe pictures, but then using AI to create a second version. And some of those pictures are doing really, really well, which, again, though, it's this idea that we move through the world in an ethical, honest way. We are ensuring that if we're putting something with our business's name or as a creator, that you have ownership of it and that you stand behind it. So if you're going to do it, then know what sort of territory you're wading into. And it's going to keep evolving. I think we're all using AI way more than we realize we are. right? People don't even realize sometimes when they're talking to AI, which is worrying as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, very true. Okay, so we talked about the images. I guess the next thing I would say is how have you navigated people coming to you similar to your veterinarian with the foster? They get this, we've received this, and I'm sure you have too.
Oh, yeah.
ChatGPT gave me this whole strategy for Pinterest. Tell me, should I do it?
Yeah.
How would you tell people to navigate what chat is giving them?
Sure. So again, I really talk about like when we are interpreting this information, we really do have to sort of step back. And you'll notice that some of the early telltale signs are there. Like, it will reference things that we did, you and I, and people that we know and clients we had, things that we did 7 years ago, 8 years ago. It pulls very outdated strategies. And I think sometimes it does kind of infuse some interesting ideas where it goes off the rails and brings in like completely not related to Pinterest. And maybe it's just interesting and new and novel. So I congratulate it on sometimes having interesting ideas. But I find that it's the blind leading the blind. Like I'm not wonderful at LinkedIn. And when I ask it to create a LinkedIn strategy for me, it's better than nothing. But probably if any of my LinkedIn marketing friends saw that strategy, they would be
Horrified.
I think that what we notice is that it will absolutely get people started who are maybe not active at all or don't really understand what makes Pinterest unique. And at the root of it is, great content, getting consistent. And I do think it can help sort of open those doors for people. What we notice, it's going to tell you what it thinks you want to know.
Yeah.
And it gives outdated information. And the strategy tends to be like, please tell me what you notice. But it just seems kind of all over the place.
Totally. And very outdated.
Yeah, outdated, kind of all over the place. But again, like for maybe somebody starting at zero who has very limited resources, or it's kind of laughable, right? So I actually just last night had somebody reach out to me and they said, I did this and then I did that and ChatGPT told me this and I think it's better. And I kind of laughed because as soon as I read it, I was like, I can see why you think these pin titles or text overlay options are good, but you know that those are not Pinterest keywords. The ways that that's been constructed, again, better than nothing, but it's not actually mapping onto search behavior of people on Pinterest. So if your goal here is to grow on Pinterest, you have to conduct your own research. Do not outsource that. I really think that you know your audience best. And if you don't know your audience, this is your sign to go get to know your audience. We want to solve what they search. We want to think like they do. And I think that the best place to do that is on Pinterest itself. I just think, again, like go to where they are, go look at how they're searching. And then we take that information and have AI help us organize our strategy or even, more what could be considered repeatable tasks. Like if you're scheduling out a lot of content, that could be a lot of hours and hours, right? Especially if you're not doing it all the time or it's not intuitive. I think you and I could probably do it in our sleep.
Yes, totally.
That like, we just think like that. That's why I do this, because these types of skills are intuitive to us, but to others, they aren't. So what I always think about is you have to know what you want it to do so that you can fully, again, human-led, you can critically analyze what it's telling you and what it means in the context of the piece, the product, the service, whatever it is you're wanting to post on Pinterest. And so I think it's like that's part of our skill is teaching people to understand their strategy so they're not just blindly following, AI and other platforms. But yeah, I think that unfortunately right now, it's better than nothing, but it really is misinformed and it's not using, well, and SEO experts would tell you that even if it tells you SEO phrases or key phrases, they are not based on actual search volume. So it's not able to pull Pinterest keyword search volume or in fact, Google search volume either. So it's giving you keywords. It doesn't mean that there's any actual data behind those words that it's suggesting you use.
Right. Which I think brings up a really valid point about leadership and history and data. And one of the things we talked about in a previous conversation was this idea of, does AI replace the job of a Pinterest educator or a Pinterest manager? And I think that is a scary thing for some people who have gotten into this industry in the last couple of years, who have managed for clients or are teaching. So, talk to me a little bit about how you see yourself as an expert leading people through the process alongside the multiple emails like chat gave me this. How do you see you? And I guess I would say, even myself or anybody in this leadership position, what is the value that we bring to the table when there's not an information scarcity, right? Like, we're in information abundance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that subject matter experts, service providers, thought leaders, marketing educators, no matter what space you're in, we have the critical thinking skills of our lived experience, our observations, our ability to note patterns and observations and understand what all this information means when brought together. So unfortunately, I don't think, at this time, AI doesn't have the ability to synthesize all that information, context, and also to identify patterns that our brains, that are literally, the brains, the gift we have been given in this world, what it means in the context of that particular business owner, of that particular account. It doesn't demonstrate the flexibility of what all the data means. So when you are managing an account, you understand what their content schedule is. You understand what kind of, their keywords deeply. You're able to sort of see opportunities that maybe AI wouldn't. And when you and I talked before, I was telling you this story, and I've thought so many times about this particular experience now that I'm in this work that I do, that when I was a school psychologist, our job was very traditional. Pen and paper at a desk. We would review all the student information, speak to parents, speak to teachers, sit in front of us, make observations, and then do these standardized assessments that were done in a very, very structured, unbiased way, and then come together to critically analyze and synthesize what that information meant in the individual case of that student. So what does this number mean as it relates to everything else? How do we interpret this information and create a plan forward? So when I was still working in that job, I remember when they rolled out iPads, and some of the doomsday folks in my team were like, oh, our jobs, we're going to be gone. Like, they don't even need us anymore. And I remember sitting down as one of the younger people on the teams and, tech savvy. Also, I was secretly blogging at the time. And I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew.
Right.
And in fact, one day at a lunch and learn, someone was like, have you ever heard about Pinterest? It's a valuable asset for people working in education. And my coworker, she was one of the only people that knew. She turned and looked at me. She's like, are you going to tell them? And I was like, absolutely not. I am not telling them anything. Let's just sit here and continue on. But at that time, what we talked a lot about is that, yes, a computer can do one aspect of the assessment and in some ways would remove the potential of contamination or human error, right? So as a human, I can make errors. But that number still needs to be critically interpreted through the unique circumstances of that child. I think about that story and that time in my life from a previous career, previous work, in the work that we do now. So no matter what, if you're a Pinterest manager, a marketing strategist, or a leader in a team, that information needs to be critically analyzed and synthesized in the context of the business, of what's going on. And I think that we understand it so deeply that if we were given an idea that was generated by AI, we have the ability to say, actually, that's a really good idea, or that's not a very good idea.
Right.
I think that's when you outsource your thinking and your reasoning, then we have a problem, right? But I will never, that's how I look at it, is that our ability to critically analyze and bring information together. And that is the human component where why Pinterest managers, why marketing managers will always, and really, you and I both know that sure, it can help us with rote tasks, but we want to work with and support people who really also value initiative and getting tasks done and, being reliable. There, even if there's if ChatGPT goes down, a staff member is still able to do a particular job. I think that too, like when we spot opportunities, and that's just the human brain, right? That we think differently. And I think marketing masters, no matter what, old school, new school, AI forward, AI reluctant, that we think in a different way that is very cognitively flexible. And that cannot be replaced at this time. Again, I would keep wanting to add things. So if somebody
true.
Sure. But right now, I am not worried, especially with what I've seen. I don't know if you've seen any examples of this, Kate, but I saw a great example. And if you haven't seen this, so it was a brand designer. And she said, as a joke, you know what? A lot of people keep saying that brand designers are done, very extremist. And she said, so I decided to put it to the test. So she created two identical, brand, I guess, what was the word she used? Like proposals, all the same information. She went out and created a brand identity and then outsourced to ChatGPT or an AI tool. And then she compared them side by side. Oh, I was crying, from the logo to the everything. It was so underwhelmingly hilarious what was generated by AI. And then she ends with sure, but go ahead and outsource your brand identity.
Totally.
AI. And she, her particular project was so innovative, so interesting. I still have my brain. And then I think ChatGPT created a logo with a floppy piece of pizza with eyeballs. It was so
Totally.
most unoriginal logo. And she just said, don't worry, my job is safe, because
Job security.
creative people are always going to be flexible and grow and bring that certain je ne sais quoi to everything they do.
Yeah. And it's the nuance, right? That can't be pulled into ChatGPT, or the nuance of her brand design, or hearing a conversation from the client that she's working with and going, oh, what if we try this? It's our brains are still superior in this place of being able to pivot. And I think that is so important with Pinterest. And even internally as a team, we were talking about this morning, that you can teach these foundations that can probably be taught with ChatGPT. You can pull them in. They'll probably be outdated. They might still use the word promoted pin versus Pinterest ads or whatever. But then there's this second layer that goes to each individual account to say your images, your copy, your keywords, the things that you're trying, and the years that you've been in business. This is where the nuance layer happens, where you do need leadership through the process, where they do need someone to go, I just need someone to tell me if I'm on the right path, or I just need someone to tell me if I should try this. And Pinterest, as we both know, is so unique because it takes time to get lift. It's not this instant, I put up an Instagram post and I can get feedback right away. Or maybe I do a second post in the week and now I can cross compare those two. You and I are pulling back and going, we need 6 to 9 months of data to be able to see if this works. So I hope that our conversation, which I think we're trending in that direction, is encouraging to people to say, there is this inflection point of AI infusing so much of our lives and so much of Pinterest. But we see, and you said this earlier, Pinterest is forward thinking in how they can filter out AI, how they can try to create a good environment where you're not just seeing AI haircuts, right? And they are the most responsive when it comes to their help desk and their troubleshooting.
100%.
I can't get any of that from Google.
I don't know about you, but that makes me proud. Even when there is constructive feedback, I think, look how many people with other platforms, if they run into problems. And, I think actually thinking about your daughter and their use and their own perspective on AI, I have to say that I do think Pinterest is this place that does tend to be forward thinking, actually thinking it through, not making impulsive decisions, thinking okay, well, how do we navigate it? It's here. It's going to show up, but what are we going to do about it? Listening, and responding in sort of a thoughtful way and trying their best to include everyone. It makes me very proud that you and I have been in this world and seen things, change and come and go. And, that's the nature of social media, but to also be heavily in the trenches of a platform, that takes initiative when it comes to all sorts of different things going on in the world, right? There's a group of individuals online, right, like say like your daughter, that are advocating for, what does the future look like? They're returning to using like what the type of like, digital,
Yes.
what are they, analogs?
Analog, yes. Flip phones. My daughter was saying that the other day when we were in a thrift store. I mean, she's very Gen Z, when she's like, I don't want to have like, what's my footprint and all of that. And so I think, yeah, we're having these really great moments where it's like coming together. But I agree with you. I do love Pinterest for that reason. And that's pretty much the reason I always give to somebody who's like, are you going to go into Instagram? No way. Like, I can't even begin to think about trying to navigate the changes and every other day and what that looks like. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And Pinterest is just so easy.
Don't you think, like, especially you and I both know a lot of people who are Pinterest managers, strategists. We know the marketing directors who are overseeing the Pinterest projects on the team. I feel like it's just like we're built different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Only do we
Are we long suffering?
Yeah, like, we're in it for the long haul.
Yes.
We really, I think that we understand that, when you are responsible for helping a business owner grow online,
Yeah.
we have to sort of reverse engineer that growth with all these other aspects. And so I always call it like sometimes there's other platforms that are flashier, right? So they're flashier. And Pinterest maybe isn't flashy, but it offers something so unique to business owners. And it does just attract people who move through the online world and marketing and growth in a different way. And truly, I think it is much more, I don't know, like if you don't create content that's rooted in your customers and their needs and their wants, Pinterest is going to be a hard slog. So, and that attracts different people, right? Who want to create blog content, want to create content that lives on their website, that's helpful, that's practical, that's valuable. And not all business owners want to operate in that way. And that's okay. But then Pinterest probably isn't going to be a cup of tea.
Yeah, right? That's true. That's a good point. Okay, so on that, what are you excited for in 2026 as it relates to your community, as it relates to your impact in this space? Like, what are you looking forward to? And you have a course, you have a community. Tell me what you're looking forward to.
I noticed this new openness towards Pinterest, and I think it's been a slow burn. We've seen it. It's been on the horizon for a long time, but I do feel like we're reaching peak fed upness with social media, especially those of us who have been online for a long time.
Yeah.
I think that we are looking for a return to the basics. We're looking for sustainability. So I see sort of Pinterest is emerging. I always joke as that, like, what's the like cool saying? Like, she's that girl right now.
Oh, yeah.
Moment. I think it's like, like a renaissance. And probably I called this whistle 2 years ago or blew the whistle, but it was a little bit too early. I think that we're seeing people who normally might not be interested in Pinterest as a business tool or growth tool who are saying, you know what, maybe you guys are onto something. So I'm seeing this like return to like slower marketing that continues to work. With that, I'm also seeing the impact of social search. And we've seen that happen in Google. We're seeing those signals to AI. And I think that what people are realizing is that they need to shift how they create content to promote their business. So a lot of people who maybe had a rise a few years ago are kind of plateauing or even feeling a decline due to disconnection with their people. And so what I'm thinking, we're going to see, again, hopefully the expansion of Scout-led AI, women-led AI, being critical of advances and being loud and proud when we don't like something, like say the AI saturation on Pinterest. They listened, right? I love that. I think we're hopefully going to continue to see people feel comfortable in their own skin and bringing that human element to their marketing, founder stories, and they're using their own voice. I think we're just going to see this like search and social search, and people are very, very interested, obviously, in how to get their businesses and products favored by AI. Still think we have quite a far way to go, but voice, I think, is going to be key in 2026. And my husband says that from a developer's perspective, that voice integration is going to be really big. I'm excited. I feel very optimistic, especially because of people like your daughter, right? Who are demanding sort of like we don't all have to be sheep. We can
Yeah.
shape where things go. And I love, love, love seeing that. I just think that we're going to continue to see the expansion of the online world. It just grows every year.
Yeah.
So many people sadly have lost their jobs in this economy, and then they're sort of making lemonade from lemons and becoming online entrepreneurs. And it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And to your point of like the new people embracing Pinterest, what we've seen is a lot of their analytics result back in getting good growth. And those who have been on Pinterest for a while, there is that decline, which is frustrating. I just wonder if it's a course correction too, of like everything kind of going where it will, or sifting, or just needing that new stuff. And for a lot of our clients too, they are exhausted at creating content if they've been in this game for a long time.
Yes.
So it is easy to want to hit the pause button. And I would say do that for a little bit. Like hit the pause button and then come back when you're ready to kind of infuse that voice, infuse your, that trust building piece when you're ready, kind of on your own terms. Cause I think that is what's going to drive it through, is that people who say, okay, this is me. I'm going to take the good of AI. I'm going to leave the bad behind, and I'm going to find a way to bridge a connection with my end user and my customer or my reader so that I can sustain. And is it going to look big and flashy? Probably not, because I think gone are those days of the crazy viralness or I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of that exists there. But I think that people will start to silo down where they do use search, right?
Yeah.
Where they will trust Pinterest for one thing, trust YouTube for one thing, trust Google or chat for another. I remember reading about Gen Z, who is this upcoming generation, right? Like they're becoming online more and more with all these platforms, that they do silo things. They silo their email addresses. I think that will be kind of the way we move forward, which makes our marketing and our choice of what platforms to market even more important and intentional. Instead of choose all the things, it's like you're going to burn out, but two, I don't even think that's an option anymore because your customer's so different on each one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That. I think we're just going to see this evolution. People are going to find their voices. You're going to have to figure out how to, I couldn't help but think when you were speaking that we're like a little bit going back to like the blogging days. So,
yes.
Right? Like we're seeing the
totally
turn of like, how many tutorials were there about painting a piece of furniture? But like everyone had their unique approach, their unique way, the way they photographed it, shared their experience. It's about the story. I think we're going to return to some of that magic, and the people who are comfortable with it and tap into that are going to be rewarded by the algorithms, no matter where they show up. And those that maybe always struggled to do that to start with will continue to struggle, and hopefully they'll seek, wonderful leaders in different spaces to help them find their voice. That's just, part of marketing.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a good point to end on. Meagan, where can people go to connect with you and follow along on your journey?
Well, thank you for having me and inviting me into your world. Always love sharing ideas with you. So people can find me on my website, meaganwilliamson.com. My company is called Pin Potential. That's where we have all our courses and products, or you can come see me across any social. I am an omnipresence girl. I'm a child of accessibility. So if you love long format, my blog, and video and short video, all the things, it's, I always laugh that I can't get away from the world of accessibility when I think about my own content.
Yes.
And you know what? That's like people like you and I who have always done that. I think that this is our time to shine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. Very true. And we're going to leave all the links below in the description. But what a joy from even just our previous conversation that we had into this conversation and just kicking off 2026. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.